first question. Congratulate you for the film. I thought it was fantastic. Where are you? You're in the middle. Yes, I thought it was fantastic. And Antonio, I think you played an Olympia both. I want to congratulate you both. You played great roles. You might even win the prize. Some references I want to ask the director as the keys throughout the film, the using of the holy blanket and links to Bilbao Bigas Luna. Well, first of all, thank you very much. And I congratulating Olympia and Antonio for a director, I always say, is nobody without good actors. And the reference that what you're referring to, there is cinema for me that above all, before becoming a director, I like to watch cinema. So therefore, I'm influenced by all of this. Albeit it's true that one doesn't want to make the film that he wants, or the film that comes out of him or her as a director. Specifically, I didn't think about Bilbao by Bigas Luna, but in an entire tradition of Spanish cinema, which seems to me marvelous, of actors and directors that go through Buñuel, Bigas Lunas, Almodóvar, Murotti, Saura, La Tía Tula, Estaño Viaje, Fernando Gomez. There's a multitude of people, and to go back down south to Granada, and a place where I've lived for many years, is to make a film which is anchored in those roots, and which I would like it to be universal, but at the same time very Spanish at the same time, as I was saying.
Hola, buenos días.
Hi, good morning. Over here on the left. Over the left. Sorry. This is a question for you. We hear the sound there and we can't see you. I would like to know, why did you decide to not provide any clues of why the character is a cannibal? And then to ask Antonio, do you still like eating meat after doing this film? I don't know whether you do or not. You start. Yes. Yes. Yes, I like meat. Meat. Live and dead meat. Or dead, but à la pointe. Let's not lose track of what we're talking about. But from the script, and we all were agreed, Alejandro and I did, from the outset on the script, was to try to not be psychological, but to try to explain why the presence of the evil personified in this person, in this actor, or this man. And to give you an example that you may well understand, the film would be like a love story of the devil. What would happen if the devil fell in love? And Lucifer, the fallen angel, betrays God when he was his favorite angel, and no one explains why. So therefore, I think that the line of evil, where one starts and goes to the other side and crosses that line, you cross that line without wearing it, without bearing it, without knowing it. It's in your unconscious. Frankly, I wanted to show the presence of evil in its purest state, and at the same time being something that could happen to any of us. To explain this, to explain where it stems from, obviously, we in the script, we've got our story that we hide it, and we hide it, but it is to be complacent vis-a-vis the audience, and say you've got the answer, and therefore you can feel relaxed. You know who the bad person is. So therefore, I think the film has to disturb you and to make you think, why does there exist a character like this, or could exist a character like this in fiction, because this is fiction, in the current society or contemporary society?
Hola, buenos días.
Hi, good morning. A question for Antonio de la Torre. I want to congratulate you. Congratulations for your work. There are many, many great characters and roles that you've played. This is another one to many of the roles that you've portrayed. And along the lines to what the director has just mentioned, how did you construct the character? How did you imagine something in the past? Or did you just base yourself on the script? Because it's very complex. Could you talk about that a bit? Yes, we talked about the past of the character, Manolo and myself, And to not enter into detail would be, I imagine, is the story of mankind or humanity. At the end, we know the majority of abused people had been abused when they were younger, and the story of humanity says that the chain of violence is the daughter or the son of prior violence. That's why we constructed the past of the character, so that I could bear this in mind all the time. But like Manolo says, at no time did I want to judge or address the issue on being a psychopath or a murderer or portraying that role. I tried to portray the character, trying to seek and to understand the part of the desire of the character, and the difficulty to find empathy with another person are the two keys of telling you how it. There's another line which could be an anecdote, but it's very important. It's always been so. Is the professional side of the character. I needed to feel like a tailor. I had to believe I was a tailor in order to feel that I could defend that character who has a life as a tailor. He carries out his profession and he's prestigious, and at the same time that serves as a mask so that he can do what he does, and to allow him to go free to his hidden side, that hidden side of him. So therefore, over the years I've learnt that an actor is a tool at the service of telling a story, or for storytelling, and you've got to do what you've got to do at each given moment, and all of that's going to add up and is going to be able to provide the character for you. And then there's another element which I believe to be very important, and that is reality always exceeds fiction. I tried to do the characters from the bottom of my soul. I'm not going to teach you how to perform, because I don't consider myself, I'm not anyone to do so, but I always try to find the truest thing possible in my characters. And I've been very fortunate, and like Manolo says, Manolo, who's my friend and my accomplice, he's one of the best directors of actors that exist in Spain, and practically, and I'm sure in Europe as well, and he's got my complete confidence, and I trusted him and he trusted me, and then he allowed me to fly without being afraid of falling. Two questions, one for Martin Cuenca. You've talked about the devil that falls in love, like how the devil would fall in love, but I saw the film, and I'm not sure that's the importance that you wanted to provide. That obscurantism that this religious country, has, like the whole Easter week and the holy processions in Easter week in this country, to create this character and to draw out. Is there anything of that involved in there? And Antonio de la Torre, we've seen you in films that you've made us laugh, films histrionic like Gordos, where you've got to play a role, and then the thriller, such as in Grupo Siete. And now we see you in a role which is completely different, in which you're very erratic and you're very cold, and with your eyes, you've got to try to say what you want or what you're going to do. This character is the most difficult character to portray. Do you want me to start, or yes? Yes, I'm pretty sure it's the most difficult character I've had to portray. At least the character that I chose to represent me in life has nothing to do with this character. I'm a person who's very expressive, and I always use a lot of words. And at the beginning of my career as an actor, that's the way I worked. But what I was trying to do was to try to be very alive within the character. But Manolo was saying less is more, less is more. But I always had, my heart was beating very, very fast and very strong, and I felt a lot of fire inside me. I'm very passionate in my life and in my profession, and with that passion is how I've portrayed this character. If that's the way it worked out, well, I think that's the way Alejandro Manuel wrote it in the script, and then Manuel as a director, and between what Olympia and I, well, obviously an actor is nobody without his or her companion. It wouldn't have been possible with this character without Olympia. I must underline this, and at the end of the day, that's the way it came out. But I think that at the end, and I repeat the same thing, well, each character has one way of doing things. Every person has a certain expression and certain characteristics. Like the tailor, more or less expressive, as you were saying, but I think the soul has to be very alive. And then there's also something very interesting, which practically happens to us in life. We feel one thing in life and we do it the other way, but we actors, this is what we may do as a living, to demonstrate our feelings and express ourselves. But in generally, people in life, I think it's very interesting, or the representation of life. People feel one thing and say and say something else, or they feel something from the inside and they keep it quiet. And that's what I like. I like to play poker, and I wish I could play poker with doing what I do as an actor. As regards to the question you asked me, I think that we are what we are, and we are culture. We are the culture, we have the culture we have, and Christianity, for good or for bad, for good or evil, that's the judgment of everyone on their own. Obviously, to each their own. It forms part of our education. And Buñuel said something, I'm an atheist, but by the grace of God. There's a certain contradiction there. To a certain extent, just to give you an example, Iranian cinema uses its roots, and when you see an Iranian film, you have the impression that you know a good Iranian film. You know more about Iran than seeing 20 news, or seeing any news or reading about it. So the religion, Granada, and the Holy Week and Easter Week in Andalusia, that exists. And I'm not judging why it's there, and there's no criticism. All the contrary, it exists. I think it's a natural. It talks about the same thing about the film. It talks about pardon, forgiveness, sacrifice and death, and it talks about blood and to loving one another and redemption or not. It talks about all of those things. Hi, congratulations to the entire team. The work that you've carried out is impeccable, is exquisite, just like the tailor who works so well and so neatly. I would like Manuel to talk about, I think the film establishes a very close relationship between cinema and painting. From the poster itself, it's like a symbol of piety, and that light, that dark light, tenebrous light that you use when you illuminate, Antonio, I don't know, flamenco, Flemish painting, the window. What can you say as regards to this? Well, I have no discourse of that nature, which is very prepared or intellectual. The work that the director carries out, at the end of the day, a film is a contribution of many people. That is to say, I'm here as if I was the skipper of the ship, but the DOP, editing, the producers, everything, everybody contributes to the film being. If we changed any of those elements, the film would be a different film. So the photography work that you're talking about of the frames and the shots and the long shots, this is work that we carried out during the shooting with Pau, the DOP. And so therefore there were references of paintings, but there's nothing. It's just something that came out almost intuitively, something that you like and something that you've seen, or from what you. I have no direct references, just like it's similar to any paintings. I think it's very beautiful to feed yourself from the masters. I can't make cinema or films or write without thinking of what has happened in the past and what does that teach us and what do we contribute as something new, and that's how it can use. But let me include, if you think about, I think you make a real mistake, because when we talk about the film and about the promotion of the film, obviously there's a discourse, we're telling you about it, but the truth is, I think these are things to forget. And Manuelo and directing did at the same time. He said, hey, listen, let's just leave that in the past and put that into the subconscious, because if you maintain as present in the story and you're performing it, that you're doing something, I think it's not going to work. What you've got to learn has got to be there, and if it stays there within you, that's good. But it's got to be much more intuitive. Creation can't be discursive or dogmatic. It's got to be, it's got to flow like a river. I don't know. I don't know the dialogue between those two arts in the film. Yes, of course. Obviously. No, but don't interrupt me again, okay? Obviously, cinema for me, it feeds itself from photography and art. If you see a photograph, and in the silence of a photograph, it tells stories. A good photograph is defining a good gesture, or it's marvelous, just like painting. So we say that it's always the reference is that cinema feeds from literature, yes, partly, but more from photography and painting, from that image that talks to us, and without saying anything, without dialogues, but from the presence and silence and the image itself.
Buenos días.
Good morning. Two questions for the director. When La Mitad de Oscar was premiered, you talked about how impossible it was to make a midway film between a commercial film and the commitment of the author. Now with Caníbal, you've changed your line, or you continue to maintain it? And my second question is, you gave the protagonist role to Antonio de la Torre as a compensation to how very little he appeared in that film that we were talking about. Hey, that question is a tricky question. Well, it's a tricky question. I'm not too sure whether the producers have anything to say. Fernando, the only thing I can say is La Mitad de Oscar is a splendid film, and that this film, to a certain extent, continues along things that are already been sowed in the past. I think it's something very beautiful to Alejandro and me. I would like Alejandro to say something as well, and that is Fernando and Simon went to see the film La Mitad de Oscar, and they called us. So therefore it was, which demonstrates that cinema and the amplitude of how they look at things, that is to say, how ample they view things, but they didn't call me big after having seen La Flaqueza o Malas Temporadas, but after La Mitad de Oscar. There's many things, yes, in fact, that were very courageous and very brave, because Fernando Simon, we had spoken to him to develop another project that we were setting up. And all of a sudden, Manolo and I, we thought we'd send him the script of Caníbal to see what happens, see if they run out the door. But what happened is that they loved the script. They thought it was a film which was daring and courageous and brave. Let's say, let's go ahead with this project. And the truth is, I think this doesn't happen too often. Let's say that the producers can say, because in fact, the project that we were starting out with the outset, we left it to one side, and then we continue with Caníbal. So therefore, obviously, everyone in the Mitad de Oscar, and we as a director, we want to achieve, we want the maximum amount of audience to see our films, and we want everyone to see this film, but we shouldn't think about this. We've got to make good films, and I think the producers, the director, the scriptwriter, the actors, we want to make films that are made with the bottom of our soul and to defend them so that the biggest amount of audience can see them. So to say, whether they are commercial or not commercial, you can't think about them beforehand. Hi, good morning. Two things. And the other question, yes. Yeah, there was a packet. It was cheaper for him. We gave him two films so that he could act in both of them. I wanted to ask a couple of things to Manolo. This same story in the hands of American cinema, I imagine it. Well, everything outwards, what you've taken inwards, and noise and sound, where you've decided to use silence, and there's a Silence of the Lambs, there's an exception there. I'm not too sure whether there would be let down that I ask of whether there can be any connection between the Silence of the Lambs and Caníbal, your film. And another question, you talked about Oscar for Fernando Bobadilla, who was behind the success and of the Oscar of Mar Adentro, The Sea Inside. Do you think Caníbal can be chosen and has a profile of winning an Oscar? You've got a bit of experience in this challenge or this. Well, we, like football players, we work on the day-to-day. Today is Monday, and we'll see what happens on Wednesday. If Wednesday, Caníbal wins it, well, we'll do everything so that it can be advanced as much as possible, and whatever the film deserves in its race to the Oscar. As regards you were talking about, well, the same thing. There's no direct reference to that film, but this is one of the films that I like very much. That is to say, one is in the dialectic of what you learn from other films and what you try to contribute from your own humble perspective. So therefore, and for me, I think it's also very important what the actors contribute, because Alejandro and I are very aware of this, so we can write a script and set it up, and it's made perfectly, and we prepare everything and rehearse. But there's a moment which, at the end of the day, the actors come along and they get out in front of the camera and they say those dialogues, and they say them for real or for not for real. What we've got to say. What I'm saying is, you've got to say, I kill them and I eat them. And you've got to say that in the dialogues very truly. And Olympia's got to react to that. So I would like her to say something as regards to marvelous, that sequence, her work when we took, there were only 2 takes, 2 or 3 takes. Or 2, yes, all day long, yes, but only 2 takes. Okay, don't suck up to the director because we've finished shooting the film. No. Why do you talk to me like that? How do you see her with her eyes, with not saying anything, without apparently doing anything? How you see everything she's understanding, what this other actor is telling to. Olympia, thank you. I don't know what to say. Yeah, when you work from that silence, it's just live the moment, that is to say. In the entire film, not only in the scene in the log cabin, I hope, living every moment as if it was happening in every second of the film. That's how we did it. We just try to transmit reality with from the bottom of our soul, and with all the support of Manolo, who's a great director. Hi, good morning. Congratulations to all of you. First of all, I want to especially congratulate you for having shot in Granada. As a spectator of Spanish cinema, I'm tired that the films have been shot in Madrid and Barcelona. And I want to talk to you about the actor of the city. As a spectator myself, I don't know whether, I didn't know what time it was, what period of, I saw the tailor and the decoration of the tailor shop in his house, and I thought it was in another time. I wanted to ask the director whether you were seeking exactly that, to suspend the city or Andalusia in another period. You wanted to put it in another period of time. No, I think all the contrary to the first conception is that present time is full of iPads and so on, and one goes to your parents' house and you've got the life of things that you've seen 50 and 60 years ago. One has a telephone that if it works, they don't change it. So therefore, I thought that can be especially seen in provincial cities, which to a certain extent things are maintained the same way. You don't throw them out the window because we live differently now, but that's what the country's like. The country is contained in different layers, and the different layers continue to be there. It seems that all of a sudden we're modern, and it turns out the economic crisis hits us, and we go back, and we're going back to the 1950s. Let's say all of this exists. And Granada we wagered in favor of this for 2 reasons. Alejandro said the possibility of shooting the film in Granada. I'd already lived there. I think, on the other hand, it transmits. It's a city that I know very well, and I think to transmit things that you know from in your unconscious, I think it provides something, a soul into the film, and it's, I don't know where it is, but I think it's there, it exists. And then the producers have got to see it, and the idea that we had to say, to go from Madrid and Barcelona, where many things are carried out and shot in the bigger cities, I think it could cost less. But I think all of a sudden Granada is a city that practically no films, apart from the historic films, and to make a contemporary love film or a love story and a thriller, I think it's a new image. It's to renew the image of Spanish cinema. But I think that we've got to all understand that that's an effort that we carry out that's worthwhile doing. Hi, good morning. It's an impeccable and a lot of sobriety in the film. The plot, but there's a portrait of a psychopath and the contradictions of the Strangler of Leighton Place that Richard Attenborough took it in, and in the case as the actor portrayed it very well in the sinister way. He did. I wanted to highlight the women in this film because it turns out that men, they are asked the question and they are defending. Olympia is one of the characters that are very important in the film. I think the main character in this film, because of the sensitivity that she knows how to transmit and portray in the small time that she appears on the screen, but not as the leading actress, like Carolina, who couldn't say this, and I want to defend the actresses. They normally are better actresses than the actors and much more well-mannered, and I agree with you. So that's what I wanted to say, and I see a film which is frankly very interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
Pregunta.
Fourth row, there's a question. Hi, good morning. First of all, I want to congratulate the entire team. I like the film very much, and I think that I coincide with all the people that I've talked to about the film about. To Olympia, I'd like to know, you do two characters which are completely different throughout the film, and I would like to know, how do I have two different personalities that you've had to portray, and which of the two would you keep? And then a stupid question perhaps, but what did you eat, Antonio, during the scenes? That's what I asked myself, Manolo. Manolo never explained. He said, you eat this. I said, but Manolo, it's in the contract. And then Fernando came out with his arms crossed and said, yes, it comes out in the contract. It's in the contract. Thank you very much for your question. Let's start with Alexandra. There was 2 weeks of work, and I was a bit afraid of Alexandra because she's a woman. I don't want to talk to her about it too much. With the script and that I talked to Manolo with, she's a very strong woman who knows what she wants. She's very determined, and with Alexandra, I was a bit afraid of portraying her. But then I didn't know anything. I didn't know any Spanish, and I learned Spanish for the film. And now now I've learned a new language, and I'm very happy about this. But then after Alexandra, for Nina, it was a bit tougher to portray her because we had to take a break for 2 weeks, in which I put on about 10 kilos. And I want to thank Antonio, who supported me very much, because he has an experience in the film Gordos, which is fat people, and that helped me a lot to put on weight. So therefore, the massage classes helped me very much as well. And life in Spain, because I live in Romania, and Romania is very different from here. And living in Granada for 3 months was almost like going to another completely different universe. And these massage classes, I'd like to talk about the classes because it was very interesting. I've had customers and men, and I gave them a massage, and women as well, and it was a very interesting experience for me to know what it is to live by giving massages. And my masseur, Ilila, my professor, who taught me, is one of the women that I stole from things for Alexandra very much, and also all of our discussions and all the life of the two characters that we prayed in the rehearsals with Manolo. It was a tough path to go down, but I liked it very much. We divided the shooting of the film. We shot the first part of the film, which corresponds to Alexandra in the first part of the film. She learned Spanish, she worked on the script, and we rehearsed everything that Alexandra, and then we stopped, she changed her physique, and then we carried out the second part of Nina. So therefore, my idea was to help her to not to have to be, I'm Nina today and I'm Alexandra tomorrow. So I wanted to separate these things as if it were two different actresses, but it's the same actress at the end of the day. Hi, it's a question for Manolo and Alejandro. I would like to know whether at a certain moment at the beginning of the story you wanted to play with the option of the novel, of the film Vertigo, or you didn't want to use that. We wanted her to be the same one. No. From the outset, no. Basically, the issue was to address in the first part of the script, in the first version, they weren't even twin sisters. They didn't seem. This is something when we wrote the script, it's a script which takes time because everything is almost minimalist. They say you've got to take layers and layers away. In the novel, in which it's a Cuban novel, I'm Cuban, by the way, and it's a different world. It's the tropics. It's tremendous. It's being tremendistic. Shall I say it's the concept of what happens when you make a mistake with eating, and you mistake eating with love, and so on and so forth, and desire. And I think that there's an element that we were able to bring here to Spain to start to work upon that issue with the truth that Manolo could provide, because I don't have the cultural backgrounds for this film to be so set in Granada, which is so Spanish, which is also at the same time very universal. And this emerged by placing the film here and starting to link all of those different elements of the Spanish world. And there's nothing Cuban at all, and I'm very proud of this because I think this has made the film very genuine. And there's a lot of merit, and all the merit goes to Manolo. I think that more and more so, we work on for things so that they can work in your unconscious, in your mind, and also irrationality, for example. In the fact, during the editing with Angel, and there's the hello Angel, a marvelous editor. Someone gave us some advice to take away all of the irrationality of the film. And so therefore we asked ourselves to leave things that sometimes that we tried to explain them so that they could work, and it wasn't worthwhile. So therefore it's the same actress, That's in the film. That's why it had to be the same actress. It couldn't be two different actresses, two sisters. It's not the same. But she's the same actress, but she's not the same character. Sometimes I had to indicate this to Antonio, but that play, almost phantasmagorical of the film of what is rational and irrational. Any further questions?
Pues si no hay ninguna más.
Further questions? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.